Hello, my friends.
Hello.
Welcome to another live stream learning. We are in September doing a Level Up Your Love series,
hmm
and this is our third episode. Today, we're going to talk about how to disarm your partner's defensiveness.
hmm
So in this series, the first week we shared like how to effectively share a complaint with your partner.
Yeah.
Last week we talked about how to not be defensive um,
Ideally.
toward your partner. And this week we are going to talk about how you can respond to your partner's defensiveness in such a way that it disarms it.
Yeah. But first, an intro.
Yeah.
So I'm Coach Calvin.
And I'm Dr. Jenny Wallig.
Yeah. And we are co founders of Powerful Love Relationships and the creators of the Powerful Love method for taking your relationships to the next level. Our joy really is to empower our clients to go beyond good or average relationships, right? To co create something unshakable, relationships that delight them in every way.
Yes. So, talking about defensiveness is a step toward those unshakable, delightful relationships because the truth is that defensiveness um, is a killer of connection,
Yeah.
right?
And it's hella common.
It
Let's just
is.
start there too, right? Like
Yes.
expect that that's gonna happen, and it's a killer. Yeah.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And it's one of the things that creates communication breakdown the most.
Mhm.
It struck me today as I was preparing for this conversation that so far our um live streams about how to level up your love have been aspects of communication.
Mhm.
And that wasn't intentional, but we're responding to, inquiries from our audience about what would help them. And it makes a ton of sense that it's grounded in communication because most people like experience communication struggles as like the thing that's not working in their relationship.
Mhm.
And we know that it's not actually communication that's the thing that's not working so much. Communication is like um
Tool.
it's the tool we use to solve problems, but when communication doesn't work, it's usually a symptom of like deeper processes that aren't working within each partner. So
Mhm.
when you address those internal processes, when you learn those skills within yourself that allow better communication, communication flows. Right? So communication skills help, but really the major skills are what you're learning and shifting and being able to do within yourself.
Yeah, it's definitely a you thing.
And that is, like when you level up, your relationship is going to level up.
Mhm.
That is like the baseline realization, truth by which we do all of our work.
Mhm.
So thinking about like how to respond to your partner's defensiveness um, in a more effective way so that you can help not kick your relationship into a conflict spiral.
Mhm.
Let's talk about what steps you can take, what that actually looks like to be able to do.
Mhm. Yeah. So if you tuned in last week, you
Mhm.
might notice some similarities because the steps really do look basically the same,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. The
It's
process is the process is the process.
really.
Yep.
And so I don't know, should we go right into the
Yeah.
steps?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Yeah. So with like anything, any change, any awareness, anything, you need to first make the mental decision that this is the thing that you either do or don't want to do, right?
Mhm.
So in this case, it, deciding that, or even like expecting that, like maybe my partner's going to get defensive, but deciding that I don't want to respond in a way that's additionally defensive,
Mhm.
right? Like that is a choice, that's a decision. And with that decision, you create more awareness and have a better chance
Right.
of not responding defensively.
Yeah, you have to like know that that's what you want to do, right? Like
Yep.
go into your interactions like already deciding, okay, I am going to try not to respond defensively
Yeah.
to my partner's defensiveness.
Yep.
Your non-responsive, non-defensive response to your partner's defensiveness is, in fact, the best way to disarm their defensiveness.
Yeah, and stop the spiral, because there's
Yeah.
a chance they don't respond defensively.
Yeah.
There's a chance, but like,
If they do,
you're ready. You're also prepared for plan B.
yep. It was just like, okay, so they responded defensively. I knew this could happen. I'm not going to respond defensively to their defensiveness.
Right, because that just creates a spiral.
Yeah. So deciding is the first step, and then the second step to be able to effectively do this, and this is the step that most people miss.
Yeah, it's kind of hard
Is
to regulate
what?
your nervous system.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that is easier for some people than others.
Oh, 100%.
Right?
That's a really great point. You know, like
Yeah.
Often partners have different like abilities, capacities for nervous system regulation, which isn't something that can't change. We can grow and expand it, but just know that like you might have an easier or a harder time than your partner, and let that be conscious, right? Like name that, I think, in your relationship, anticipate that, make space for those differences. That can really help. I love that you brought that up.
Yeah. And, I think it's also, that regulation you might find as you're assessing that, because one of you has to be better than the other. Like, it's not often that you're equally matched
on anything.
Right. Yeah. But I think also the regulation can be different based on, again, the content. Right. And so, paying attention to just generally, making that decision, getting your head in the game about how you want to show up, and then being able to regulate to that place, right? Of like, okay, I want to be calm, I want to be loving, I want to be kind in my response, right? And being able to regulate to and stay connected to that place so you can regulate your nervous system should the response come back as something that feels inflammatory.
And like, make no mistake, this is the hardest part of the work.
Totally.
This is the majority of the work, right? Right here. Just in learning how to do this, what it looks like, how to be successful. Because when your partner is, say for example, you try to share your feelings and they get defensive about it, to not feel like hurt, or well, you're going to feel maybe hurt or upset.
Don't feel your feels.
Yeah, and I caught myself there.
Yeah.
But to respond from like a non-defensive place, a non-self-protective place, when it feels like the person you care about maybe more than anyone else in the world doesn't care about you, or isn't hearing you, or is denying your experience, right? Like that's really challenging to stay kind of open and vulnerable, which is essentially what non-defensive place is, right? When you're defensive, you're in self-protection. When you're non-defensive, you're kind of open for connection, but that openness is a place of vulnerability. So there's some leaning into the natural survival instincts that are going to show up in your nervous system to be able to do this.
Leaning against them. Yeah.
Right. And kind of doing the opposite of what they're telling you to do. Especially if in the beginning your relationship doesn't necessarily feel particularly safe. And this is the path. There's not a really great alternative path, because typically the alternative, the safer path that people try to take, is just trying to get your partner to change and be non-defensive.
Which I think is fair feedback, right? But again,
it is.
The only thing you can control is you.
Yes.
And so if you're both tasked with the you part and putting the work in, like that's where things get better. But you have to own your part.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's the next one.
Yeah. Well, and I just want to like, before we move on to the third step, I just want to say like that when you're in that place and trying to shift what's going on in your nervous system, you're like, you are setting yourself up for success in actually getting your partner to change, right?
Yeah.
Like that path, as challenging and vulnerable as it might be, is actually the quickest, fastest way to getting your partner to change, because then, like,
You
when
stop the momentum.
right. And when they're defensive, what does that mean? It means that they're in self-protection.
Mhm.
If they're in self-protection, it means that some part of them feels threatened by whatever you said. If some part of them feels threatened, what does that mean? That means that they feel vulnerable and scared. And so they felt the need to move into self-protection. What we forget is that, like, when our partners are vulnerable and scared, even if they're expressing that in a way that's not very effective,
Mhm.
what they need is our love, our care, our compassion, our curiosity. And so if you can remember that
Mhm.
and recognize that, like, their defensiveness is a request for love and care from me, even if it's not a very well delivered request, like, and stay in that, and also recognize, like, my compassionate response to their defensiveness is the best way for me to be able to give them the feedback that their defensiveness isn't helpful,
Mhm.
to have my position also heard, to change the dynamic in our relationship. Now you're in a really empowered place to co-create the results that you're looking for and make it safer and easier and just all around better in the communication front, in the
Mhm.
connection front. So it's worth doing the work, even though there may be parts of you that are in resistance to having to. Just want to put that out
No, I think it's good.
there. Okay.
Yeah.
So the third step, so we talked about deciding that that's what you're going to do, doing the work to regulate your nervous system. And then the third step, which we also talked about last week, is to take accountability.
Mhm.
Like, the antidote to defensiveness is accountability. So
Mhm.
if you're hearing that your partner is defensive, or like, well, you do that too, right? This is kind of the classic
Mhm.
defensiveness. But well, you,
Uh, yeah.
um,
Throw it right back.
right? Like, or this, yeah. I'll pause there. If you can respond with accountability, like, you're right, I do that sometimes. This works great with our kids, by the way. Where
Mhm.
they're like, "Will you yell at me?" And I'm like, "Stop yelling. Will you yell?" Like, you're right. I also make mistakes.
Mhm.
And it's our job to keep learning from them. And then, like, our kids are like,
Mhm. They got nothing
like,
else.
shit.
Okay.
um, you know, but sometimes defensiveness doesn't look like throwing it back in your face, right? Sometimes defensive looks like, well, I didn't mean to,
Mhm. Or an
or an
explanation of
explanation.
what was happening
I
for
was
the other
just trying
person.
to this and this, or I don't feel well and I blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
Um, in which case there might not be accountability for you to take. So we want to give you an alternative to accountability, or that works really well in disarming your partner's defensiveness. And it's connected to that idea I was just talking about of care and concern, curiosity and compassion, right? So that is validation.
Mhm.
um, and validation is simply letting your partner know that their experience is valid. It makes sense, that they're not crazy for having it.
Mhm.
I can understand why you would respond the way that you did if you weren't feeling well. Okay, yeah, I thank you for letting me know. I hear that you were just trying to do this.
Mhm.
Okay, so you're acknowledging, reflecting back the experience that they are asking you to care about in their defensiveness, right? Their defensiveness is an ask for you to care about their experience. And I know you wanted your experience to be cared about first.
Mhm.
And yet here we are. Okay. Um, Again, maybe not fair, but if you want them to get better at hearing your experience first, this is the path to learning that.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep. If you have the
Um,
capacity.
so you're caring about their experience, you know And then you follow up by reasserting your experience, right? I understand that you were tired and hungry and not feeling well, and that's why you snapped at me. And um, it's important for me that you hear that it didn't feel good, right? Or, yep, that makes sense, honey. I get that you were in a rush trying to get everything done. And I would appreciate if, even when you're in a rush, you could try to speak to me with more kindness, because it's really hard for me to receive. Right? Do you see how, like, hopefully you can feel in your body whenever I, like, give these examples. I can always feel it in my body.
Mhm.
Um, hopefully you can feel and hear the sh the greater ease of being able to receive the second message after there's been a validation. Validation is this really powerful, like, way of soothing people's nervous system. Like, act like science. I don't remember which science or where I learned this, but I learned that science, like, has shown, it's probably from Gottman studies, actually, that, like, validation creates a regulation in somebody's nervous system so that it can really help.
Mhm.
So those are the three pieces. Again, they're really similar to how to not respond defensively yourself. Because again, the best way to not respond, or to respond to your partner's defensiveness, is to not be defensive yourself.
Mhm.
So it's decide, get better at regulating your nervous system, tolerating the discomfort that is inevitably going to show up,
Mhm.
and then respond with accountability or validation.
Mhm. Yeah.
There were a couple other things, though, that we wanted to just speak to
Mhm.
in this conversation
Yeah.
before we wrap up.
Yeah. I think the first one is paying attention to your energy
Yes.
and, working with your energetics, because, like, just saying the words or going through the motions without connecting it to, like, the corresponding intended, emotions, like curiosity,
Mhm. Mhm.
like kindness, like compassion, like care, that's really easily felt in
Yes.
how you're delivering it.
Yes.
And so, similar to some tips, right, on how to connect to better feeling, more powerful energy. You kind of
Mhm.
mentioned it previously, right? Like,
Mhm.
understanding that them being defensive is actually an indication that they also feel threatened. It's
Mhm.
like a plea for love, for care, also, just a
Mhm.
little bit out of the order that you would have preferred, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
But, like, it helps you to be able to ground yourself and center yourself. When you recognize that your partner's threatened, you recognize what's going on, it helps it be a bit easier to connect to
Mhm.
those 4 C's:
Mhm. Yeah.
curiosity, care,
Concern,
concern,
connection.
connection.
Mhm.
So paying attention to your energy,
Mhm.
your delivery, your tones, your feelings during the interaction is really important as part
Yes.
of, like, the regulation piece.
Yeah. Yeah, like, when I'm super sensitive to energetics, and
We both
when,
are.
yeah, that's true. When someone tries to validate me, and when I mean someone, I mean historically my partners, try to validate me, and they're like, "Yes, I hear that you are feeling this way, and this was your experience, and blah blah blah." And it is like, it does not soothe my nervous system.
Mhm.
It pisses me off more, because the tone, the energy is not a tone of care and concern. It's like
Robotic.
frustrated,
Mhm.
exasperated.
The attempt is there, but, like,
But
the energy isn't.
the
Yeah.
energy and validation, and any kind of response. I'll say this as I feel confident in this blanket statement. The energy of your response matters more than your response. If you're one of those people who wants to get your words right, don't worry about your words, friend. Worry about your energy behind them.
Mhm.
That is what is going to make the difference. The
Yeah.
other thing that, we wanted to add in this conversation is, um, anticipate the possibility that your partner is going to be defensive sometimes, especially when you're bringing up things that might be hard for them to hear.
Prepare yourself. You know that hole's there.
Yes. Yeah, like don't fall into
You
it.
don't have to fall in or bring a ladder. I
You
don't
know,
know. Yeah.
part of that is the decision you make. Part of that is your energetics. We teach our clients a 5-part assertive message, which is
Mhm.
really helpful for composing what you want to say and saying it in a way that is less likely to create
Yep.
defensiveness. Um, we find that sharing your intentions for what you want to say, especially if you can anticipate and name your partner's potential experience before they do, can work wonders. For example, like, "Hey, I want to share some of my experience with you. My intention in sharing this is not to make you feel like you screwed up or that you're not good enough, but really to help us be connected and continue to level up our relationship.
Yeah.
Are you open to hearing that?" Right? Like,
That makes it way less scary.
whoa, like you're letting them know why you're sharing it.
Mhm.
You're in an energy of love and connection.
Yep.
You're anticipating that it might make them feel not good enough or activate some of their sensitivities or insecurities. And you're letting them know that that's not what you're attempting to do.
Mhm.
Right? So now their mind is like primed to receive your message. So helpful.
Mhm.
When you get good at responding to your partner's defensiveness in these like effective non-defensive loving ways, you facilitate a safety in your relationship, of a trust in the care that's there, to the point where defensiveness happens less and less,
Mhm.
because both of you begin to learn that you can trust communication, you can trust that your partner cares about you, you can trust that they're not meaning to attack or threaten you, you can trust that they really do want to listen and understand, and you start like getting just naturally curious about what's going on if they're not responding in those ways.
Yeah.
It just creates so much more energy and ease and lightness in the relationship to make space for all of the good stuff that y'all have going on,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah. I think also just another, I don't know if caveat's the right word, right? But for those of you who are neurodivergent,
Mm.
neurospicy, and the ADHD, ADHD spectrum,
Mhm.
there's this lovely thing that we're subjected to called,
That you
that we
experience.
experience, not subjected to, that we experience called rejection sensitivity disorder, RSD.
Dysphoria.
Dysphoria?
I think it's
I forget what the
dysphoria.
D is. Anyway,
I'm gonna Google it.
it makes us more
Pretty sure it's dysphoria, babe.
sensitive to rejection, and or like perceiving basically anything as rejection, which creates like a defensive type response pretty easily, pretty often.
Mhm.
And so for me, it was a real eye opener when I recognized that, like, and yeah, recognized and became aware of how this has been operating for me.
Mhm.
But like also the neurospicy clients that we've worked with, right? Like
Mhm.
once they have this awareness, like, oh shit, yeah, that's a thing.
Mhm.
You can start to anticipate that
Yeah.
and address that, navigate that a little bit differently, both as the neurospicy one, but then also as the,
As the
if you're a
partner.
neurotypical one with a neurospicy, like then it's a
Or
good
even if you're
awareness for
not,
you.
even if you're both
If you're both
neurospicy,
neurospicy,
right? Like
right?
this is still a skill.
It is.
Yeah,
It is.
we had one client who very similar to Cal in my experience, where one person was neurotypical and the other was neurodivergent, and um one of the most helpful things that we were able to do for the partner who was neurotypical, right, was help her to understand her partner's defensiveness and where it was coming from and
Mm-hmm.
what it was about and the like roots underneath it. And she had resistance sometimes to talking, to bringing things up to her partner because of his defensiveness. But when we put it into context and helped her anticipate that, then she
Mm-hmm.
could come to those conversations with like, hey, I know that this might activate your rejection sensitivity, right? Because now he was also aware, and it was part of the language between
Yeah, now
them.
you have a
I
vocabulary.
want to share this with you. I don't believe that you suck or that you're not good enough. Like, all that is not what this is about. And again, that like helped prime him, despite the sensitivity that might show up. Now, like, he was able to respond to that differently and receive what she had to say. So defensiveness, like, started to decrease, when initially it was a huge dynamic in the relationship. So this is just, just one example. And of course, Cal and I practice that. It's part of what I discovered was going to be helpful in my being able to talk to him at all about things, because defensiveness was a very quick reaction for a very long time.
Yeah, sometimes still is.
Yeah, it's still a work in progress.
Yeah.
But I know that when I slow down enough to approach him more consciously, I get a way better response than if I'm just like reacting and being like, why didn't you? I mean, the last time I tried doing that, like, I think I was like, is there a reason you're not helping me? And it didn't go well. I think it was on my birthday that morning, as opposed to a more soft response of like, hey.
Birthdays are primal makers.
Yeah,
They're a wonderful celebration.
It
It
wasn't a great start. But we got through it. And I recognized the next time I had that thought, like, why isn't he? I'm like, no, let's not say it like that. And it went way better. So this really, really works. All right. So we want to, as usual, make the invitation for you, if this is resonating with you, if you want to learn how to get really good at this, to work with us. It's our responsibility to invite you to work with us, remind you that we are here and we can support you in creating an unshakable relationship that delights you. And it's your job to decide whether or not that's something you're into.
Yeah. And
that's okay.
Totally.
So I would love for you to, if you're feeling pulled to work with us, to comment or DM with Next Level Love so we can talk about our Next Level Love program. This is a 12-month container that is going to support you in creating a relationship that feels easier, happier, more united, more fulfilling, sexier, like delightful in the ways that you want to be delighted, that you want to level up your relationship. We in this program are going to support you in deepening your connection, improving your communication, resolving whatever challenges might have been coming up between you two, and just like amplifying the good stuff that you want to be even better. So this program is designed to help you experience those transformations, even if your partner is not on board doing the work with you. Because as we've talked about, when you change, your relationship dynamics change too, right? And focusing on you and what you can do different is where you have the most power to make a difference.
It's the only place you have power to make a difference.
Right. It's true.
You can only control yourself.
It's true. Yeah. Language matters.
Barely.
Well, we can get good at it, right? So if however you're like considering divorce or breaking up, we've got a different program for you. Next Level Love is the best fit for the folks who know that they want the relationship that they're in. They're already coming in with the commitment to going on their own personal journey, and their desire is to make their good relationship even better so that they can experience everything that their relationship has to offer. And your relationship has even more to offer than you realize.
Yes. But were you going to finish your thought about the people who are considering divorce? Or
no, I think I did. I just said like,
okay.
if that's you, this isn't the right program. We have a different program.
Yes. Okay. Gotcha.
He lost that.
I didn't know we were gonna like talk about both of them.
No, I just like mentioned that this Next Level Love is not the right program for that.
Correct.
So
Yes.
the investment for Next Level Love is around $2,000 per month.
Yeah.
And again, just DM or comment with Next Level Love. We'll schedule a short call to make sure that everything's a good fit and take it from there.